जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना जय राधा Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki Jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mani ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
I hope I'm not hitting.
Om Jnana Vedantasya Pranam Shalakaya Chakshurunnitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhisham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Svapadapikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Latapatamalam Shri Devi Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahatarathunathangutam Tam Sajivam Sadhayutam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahatana Lalita Shri Vishakhandutamscha Nama Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatayane Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to our third session on glorious departures. Anyone is coming here for the first time for this session? You missed. Okay, quite a few. So just a very brief background. By glorious departures we mean glorious deaths. We are talking about examples of great devotees who died in an exemplary way, who set the standard for the perfect death. On the first day we spoke about death and the importance of learning how to die by the process of learning how to live properly. We discussed that quite extensively. And then the previous time, last time, that is on Sunday evening, we spoke about Maharaj Parikshit's glorious passing away from this world. Such examples are very helpful for us because they give us some inspiration and guidelines on how we should approach death. Because death is going to come to every one of us. So what should be our attitude? What should we be thinking about? How should we face the inevitable that will come to us in our life? Actually, we have to prepare for it for our whole life. Today we'll speak about a very special devotee, a great devotee of Krishna, a very intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur. How many of you have not heard of Haridas Thakur before? Please raise your hand. Okay, very nice. How many of you have not heard of the passing away pastime of Haridas Thakur in detail? Okay, that's quite a few. How many of you have heard it? How many of you know all the details? Okay. So what's speaking about it? And even if we have heard it in detail, it's still worth hearing about and speaking about. Because it is a very inspirational story. Haridas Thakur was not an ordinary devotee. He was an extraordinary devotee from birth. He was born in a Muslim family, but somehow or the other, he had a spontaneous attraction to chanting of Krishna's names. In the history of devotion to Krishna, there have been many great devotees who were born in Muslim backgrounds. In Braj also there's many, like Ras Khan, and in Orissa, a great devotee of Jagannath called Salabeg. These are legendary personalities. And of course, as far as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are concerned, we have Haridas Thakur. Not much is known about his origins, exactly who his parents were and what they did and where he was born. There are conjectures. But the first we hear about Haridas Thakur is when he came traveling and then certain pastimes took place. He was already a very exalted soul by that time. He was already constantly chanting the names of Krishna all the time. And this was even before he had met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one can well understand that this is not an ordinary person who has a spontaneous attraction for the holy names of Krishna even without anybody preaching to him. We start our 16 rounds after a great struggle, right? People have to really break their heads to try to convince us to chant Hare Krishna. And then also we have so many doubts and so many questions, and then we start slowly with 1 round, 2 rounds, maybe a few rounds, and eventually it takes us such a long time to get to chanting 16 rounds every day. And also then it becomes such a struggle and such a burden to somehow or the other attain moksha or liberation every day by finishing 16 rounds. And then we say, well, now I'm liberated from the day's work, 16 rounds over, free for the day now. Can relax a little bit. But Haridas Thakur used to chant how many Mahamantras every day, how many rounds every day? 300,000 names, that's roughly how much? 192 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day. And we chant 16, right? And 16 is a tough job. We have to finish it. But 192 rounds, maybe more, 300,000 rounds. Actually, 1 lakh names or 100,000 names roughly works out to 64 rounds. Not exactly, but roughly. So 3 lakh names or 300,000 names is 3 times that. So Haridas Thakur's absorption in the chanting of the holy names was phenomenal. We spent roughly 2 hours a day chanting our 16 rounds. and the rest of the 22 hours are for so many other things. But for Haridas Thakur it was the opposite. 20 hours chanting and 2-3 hours for other things, including sleeping, eating, and whatever else was there. Now we cannot imitate Haridas Thakur, of course. We will die. There's no doubt about that. So Haridas Thakur's example is extraordinary. And when he came to the association of the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, immediately everybody recognized his exalted status. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recognized it, and he awarded him the title Namacharya, the Acharya or the great teacher of the holy name. The word Acharya comes from the word Acharan, which means behavior. One who sets the example, sets the standard by his own behavior, that's an Acharya, who teaches by example. So because he set the standard by his own example for how to chant the holy name, how much to chant the holy name, so he was the Acharya of the holy name. And this title was awarded to him by none other than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So it goes to show that there is no barrier of caste, creed, community, even religious background, ethnic background. There is no such distinction or discrimination when it comes to the chanting of the holy names and to Krishna consciousness in general. So Mahaprabhu had many such associates in his intimate circle. Haridas Thakur was one. Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were two others. They were actually born in Saraswat Brahmin families, but they had been engaged in the intimate service of the Muslim king of Bengal, Nawab Hussain Shah. And according to the orthodox customs of the day, they were ostracized from the community of Hindus because they were serving a Muslim king so intimately. So they were practically considered Muslims, and they even had Muslim names. So as far as society was concerned, they were as good as Muslims. And therefore they also did not venture to step into Jagannath's temple in Jagannath Puri. There is a custom that has been coming down for many years, that only those born in Hindu families can enter Lord Jagannath's temple, which is of course something we don't agree with at all. Because we understand that Krishna consciousness has nothing to do merely with one's birth. There are so many devotees who are not born in Hindu families, even in our ISKCON movement, who are so dedicated and sincere in following all the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, and who have such sincere devotion for Krishna and Jagannath in their hearts, and they are not allowed to go. And there are others born in a Hindu family who may be violating all the regulative principles, leading completely immoral lives, and may not have a tinge of devotion for the Lord, but they can just walk in because they are born in a Hindu family. So devotees have been working on this for quite a few years, and there seems to be some softening of the stand thanks to this effort, but it will be a while before the priest there can come around to accepting this. Nevertheless, the point is that even at that time, 500 years ago, the society was very rigid. And what to speak of Haridas Thakur, who was actually born in a Muslim family, even those who had been closely associating with Muslims were also considered persona non grata, which means that you were not allowed inside the Jagannath temple. So that was the kind of atmosphere that was prevailing there. And Haridas Thakur, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, out of their humility, never tried to violate the local customs because they didn't want to create an uproar anywhere. And they were very humble. They felt anywhere we are not qualified to go there. So they would rest content with looking at the chakra on top of Lord Jagannath's temple. So the chakra, Sudarshan chakra that's there on top of the Gopuram or the Shikhar minaret of the temple, that is as good as seeing Lord Jagannath. That is the idea. So Haridas Thakur every day just have darshan of the chakra on top of the temple, and he would not go in. But his devotion was so great that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Krishna, who is none other than Lord Jagannath, would come every day in the afternoon to see him. So Haridas Thakur could not go to see Jagannath, but Jagannath in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna would come and give darshan to him every day personally. He had a little place, and what was the name of the place where Haridas Thakur stayed? Oh? What was the name of the place? Who said that? Yes. Siddha Bakul. It's a very famous place. So next time you all go to Jagannath Puri, you must visit Siddha Bakul. That is Haridas Thakur's place of residence. So every day Mahaprabhu would come there at noon and spend some time with Haridas Thakur. That is how much and how highly he regarded Haridas Thakur. Now it also happened that Haridas Thakur was much older in age than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was quite elderly by the time he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similar to the age of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was almost 50 years older than Mahaprabhu. And Haridas Thakur was also many, many years older. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was 24 years old when he took sannyas. And then he shifted to Jagannath Puri rather than Vrindavan at the request of his mother, Shachi Mata. He went for pilgrimage for the next 6 years, and in between, whenever he was in Jagannath Puri, he performed many, many pastimes there with the devotees. So the phase of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life till he took sannyas is called the Adi Lila in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The phase of his life from the point of taking sannyas for another 6 years, from the age of 24 to 30, till Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri and then never moved out after that. That phase of 6 years is called the Madhya Lila. And then from the age of 30 till the age of 48, till Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared from this world, those 18 years are called the Antya Lila. In that Antya Lila phase, Mahaprabhu would go into very deep and intense trances of remembrance of Krishna, and he would have ecstatic symptoms manifesting. He would spend time increasingly with his close associates like Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar and so on. So now this pastime of Haridas Thakur's passing away happened towards the end of the Antya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was probably in his 40s at that time, perhaps. And so Haridas Thakur must have been really old at that time. So the whole episode has been described beautifully and in great detail by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in his magnum opus, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I would like to recommend to all of you who have the Chaitanya Charitamrita at home that you can read this particular chapter. Antya Lila chapter 11, the passing of Thakur Haridas. If you have this in your house, if you don't have a set of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I suggest you get one, keep it in the house, and after you've read all the earlier books, you may selectively read passages from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Some passages are very, very deep and esoteric, and it may not be recommended to read those sections right away till you have read all the other books of Srila Prabhupada. Nevertheless, there are some sections which are very nice to read even at an early stage in devotional service. So this chapter is also one of them. So Kaviraj Goswami describes in this chapter about the Antilila of Mahaprabhu and how day after day his symptoms of ecstasy in separation from Krishna increased. Mahaprabhu would spend all day chanting, and at night he would stay in his room, the Gambhira, with his intimate associates, and they would recite different verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam and from the works of great devotee poets like, anybody knows? Gita Govinda, of whom? Jayadev Goswami. Which other poets' works would Mahaprabhu listen to? Bilva Mangal Thakur. Which book? Krishna Karnamrita. What else? Who else did he listen to?
The prayers of from the Bhagavatam, Guru Maharaj,
Yes, Bhagavatam, yes. But in terms of, apart from Bhagavatam, which are the poets? Brahma Samhita, well, yes. Vidya, not Vidya Vachaspati. Vidya Vachaspati was different. This is Vidyapati. Vidyapati was a great devotee poet from Mithila. And there was also Chandidas. He was also a great poet. And these poets wrote very deep things about Krishna and his pastimes. So Mahaprabhu would relish this all night long, wouldn't sleep. And there were his associates like Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar would recite these verses, and Mahaprabhu would just go into ecstatic trance. And they would relish these verses night after night, sometimes all day and all night. And this would be happening. So as the days passed, Mahaprabhu's display of these transcendental ecstatic symptoms increased. And he started withdrawing more and more into himself. And he was less and less available to the people at large. However, he would not stop associating with his intimate devotees like Haridas Thakur. So one day, Govinda, the personal assistant or servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, carried the Mahaprasadam of Lord Jagannath to Haridas Thakur. Now this was also a regular feature. Even when Mahaprabhu could not come, or even if he did come, Govinda would bring Lord Jagannath's Mahaprasadam for Haridas Thakur because Haridas Thakur would not go in the temple. And then Haridas Thakur would honor some of the Mahaprasad. So this time, when Govinda came to Haridas Thakur, he saw that he was lying on his back and he was chanting his rounds on his beads very, very slowly. And Govinda was worried because he was very elderly and he looked very weak and frail. And he was lying, and somehow with great difficulty he was making the effort, physical effort, to move the beads and to chant. So he was chanting very, very slowly. So Govinda asked him, he said, "Oh Haridas Thakur, please rise. I have brought the Mahaprasadam of Lord Jagannath for you. Please honor this." When Haridas Thakur saw this, he said, "Today I shall observe fasting." What is the reason? The reason is, he said, "I have not finished chanting my prescribed number of rounds. How then can I eat?" So this was his standard. Till he finished his rounds, not 16 rounds. Till he finished chanting all his rounds, he wouldn't eat anything. So he said, I have not finished my rounds, so I will not eat. But in any case, he said, you have brought Jagannath's Mahaprasadam. How can I disrespect that? So he took a little morsel, just put it in his mouth. Because Mahaprasadam, according to the scriptures, has to be respected as is where is. Whatever be your situation, even if you haven't taken a bath, there's Mahaprasadam, honor it by taking at least a grain, bring it. Generally, we are not supposed to eat unless we have taken a bath. So even if you take only prasadam, but when it comes to Mahaprasadam, and especially Lord Jagannath, no time, no circumstances, you can take it. This topic has been discussed in various other pastimes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So anyway, Haridas Thakur, he took a little Mahaprasadam and ate it. So Mahaprasadam therefore has to be dealt with great respect. And therefore usually we don't say the word, I have eaten Mahaprasadam. Although physically we are eating it. But we say we have honored Mahaprasadam. Because you serve Krishna in different forms, in different ways. You serve the holy name by chanting, by hearing. You serve the deities by gazing at them with love, and by offering arati, offering paraphernalia, decorating them and so on. You worship Krishna in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam by hearing and reciting. So Krishna appears in different forms and is respected in different ways according to the form that he has taken. So in the form of prasadam, he is also honored and respected, but by eating. And sometimes you honor the Mahaprasadam just by offering obeisances. Because it's Mahaprasadam, it's not ordinary food. The scriptures say that to waste even ordinary food is an act of sin, impiety. And it has repercussions, it has karmic reactions. And what to speak of if you waste Mahaprasadam? I think in one of our ISKCON temples, probably in Tirupati or something, in the Prasadam hall, they put up all these quotes from the different scriptures about what happens to you if you waste even one grain of Mahaprasadam. And everybody who was there is very cautious to see that they don't waste a single, because they're reading it all the time. So Haridas Thakur understood the value of the Mahaprasadam. He just took a little to offer respect and lay back. Then Govinda, of course, went back and gave the news to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Haridas Thakur is not well. He is lying down. He seems very weak and frail. And he didn't even take the Mahaprasadam properly. He just ate a little bit. And he said, I haven't finished my rounds. So Mahaprabhu was very concerned. So the next day, Mahaprabhu, as usual, went to the place of Haridas Thakur. And he asked him, Haridas, are you well? So Haridas offered his obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though it was physically very difficult for him to move. But nevertheless, he offered his prostrated obeisances. And then he said, he gave a very astonishing answer. He says, my body is well, but my mind and intelligence are not well. So what was the reason for him saying that? So Mahaprabhu ignored that statement. And he said, can you ascertain what your disease is? What is the problem? Because Mahaprabhu was genuinely concerned. Because Haridas Thakur did look to be very frail. And then Haridas Thakur gave a very, very important answer about his disease. What did he reply? What is my disease? He said, my disease is that I cannot complete my rounds. That is my disease. I cannot chant my prescribed number of rounds every day. That is my diseased condition. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that if one cannot chant one's prescribed rounds, number of rounds every day, then one should be understood to be in a spiritually diseased condition. So he said, therefore, for the sake of people in the modern age, especially for Westerners, we have given the restriction of only 16 rounds every day minimum, instead of 64 rounds. We are supposed to chant 100,000 names every day, at least 64 rounds. But when Srila Prabhupada mentioned the idea, the devotees were shocked. And they said, 8 hours chanting? 64 rounds? That's impossible, Prabhupada. We cannot do it. So Prabhupada brought it down to 32 rounds. And they were shocked. This 32 also not possible. He said 16 then, but no less than 16. So that's how the 16 rounds in ISKCON has come about. So then Prabhupada says, if anyone doesn't chant the prescribed number of rounds every day, then one is considered to be spiritually diseased. And Haridas Thakur actually set that example. So then Mahaprabhu didn't buy that from him. He said, Haridas Thakur, you have become very old now. And therefore you may reduce the number of rounds you chant daily because you're already liberated. You're not an ordinary practicing devotee. You're not a sadhak. Sadhak is one who's in the stage of practice, not one who is perfect. So the word sadhaka implies a devotee who's practicing, who's in the stage of practice, not perfected. And a siddha is one who is perfected, himself in Krishna consciousness. So Haridas Thakur was by no means a sadhaka. He had already attained the stage of perfection, so he was a siddha. So Mahaprabhu was telling him that Haridas, you are already liberated. Therefore there's no need for you to follow the regulative principles. Even if you don't chant your prescribed number of rounds now, it's alright because you've reached such an elevated, exalted state. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says that one should learn from Haridas Thakur's example that however elevated one may be, one should not stop chanting and hearing. This message is given in numerous places in the scriptures, even in the teachings to Rupa Goswami, the famous Bhakti Lata Bij section, where Prabhupada cautions that the watering of the seed of devotional service, that is hearing and chanting of the holy names and forms and pastimes of Krishna, should never be stopped at any stage of devotional service. Whether one is a new devotee, whether one has been around for just 10 years or 20 years, or whether one is a very advanced devotee, at no stage should the process of hearing and chanting about Krishna be stopped. And Haridas Thakur is a great example of that. So Haridas Thakur didn't need to chant it. The certificate came from Mahaprabhu himself. That I'm giving you the certificate, you don't need to chant your rounds now. And Haridas Thakur didn't buy that. Even though the Lord was telling it to him face to face, standing there, you don't need to chant. Because out of his humility, Haridas Thakur felt, I'm not a liberated soul, I'm not an exalted soul. I need to follow the rules and regulations. In the Shad Goswami Ashtakam, about the 6 Goswamis, it is mentioned, Sankhya Purvaka Namagan Natibhi Kalavisani Krita. The 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan would very strictly follow the regulative principles. They would count the number of rounds every day, Sankhya Purvaka Namagan Natibhi. They would count their rounds. They would also offer a certain minimum number of obeisances every day. Now, of course, should I shock you with a few statistics? But don't get a complex, don't worry. But I can't do that. Never mind. But at least we should do something. Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatan Goswami would offer at least 1,000 obeisances to the Vaishnavas, a couple of thousand obeisances to the deities of Krishna, to Govardhan every day. They would meet devotees and offer obeisances. And sometimes for us to offer a couple of obeisances in a day is a quota complete. But the 6 Goswamis, and not that they were just new bhaktas who had just started chanting Hare Krishna. They were the most exalted devotees. So they would chant a certain number of rounds every day minimum. And apart from that, they were constantly chanting spontaneously. That was different. But as a discipline on their deeds, they would chant their minimum rounds, they would offer their obeisances, and they would do various other things. So this is also an important lesson for us to follow, that we should also follow the regulative principles in numbers every day. Sometimes people say, well, why do you have to count? It just takes the whole love or the devotional aspect away. Just rules, rules, rules. You have to chant so many number of names. So the whole emphasis in the mind then is just on finishing the number. Well, yes, that's a valid point. And certainly we should try to ensure that we don't chant mechanically. And as I was mentioning earlier, not chant just to get over with it and somehow we're free for the day. That shouldn't be the attitude. But what is the need then for doing it as a discipline? Just that, a discipline. Because if we don't follow a discipline, then we will lose the practice or the habit of chanting regularly, because we don't have spontaneous taste for Krishna consciousness, for chanting the name of Krishna. And if there's no discipline, one day we will stop chanting. A second reason is that the mind plays tricks with us. If you don't have beads, and if you don't have beads, you can't count. And furthermore, if you don't have beads, then you don't engage your sense of touch. So you don't realize how much you have chanted. And you may think that you've chanted a lot, but actually you haven't. But when you have your beads, fingers on the beads, and you know you're still there, you know that you haven't chanted those rounds. Oh, it's 10 minutes and I've only chanted half my round. So probably I was thinking of so many other things during that time. I was chanting one name and then I stopped thinking. When I chant with devotees in the temple, over the years my observations have been that I sometimes observe how devotees chant their rounds, and many times you'll see devotees gazing into the distance, and you're looking at them, you can know they're thinking of something else. They're meditating on something, not Krishna. He stopped his chanting, he's thinking, he's got his eyes somewhere, his head somewhere. He stopped his chanting, his mind is wandered. His hand is stationary, and sometimes even worse, his fingers are moving. But he's not focusing on the holy name. So because we don't have spontaneous attraction, so we have to have discipline. That's called sadhana, the stage of practice. Now Haridas Thakur had crossed that stage by far. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally told him, Haridas, you're old, you don't need to do that. In fact, Krishna said the same thing even to Sanatana Goswami in Braj. Every day Sanatana Goswami would follow the regulative principle of doing a parikrama of Govardhan. How many of you have done a parikrama of Govardhan? Okay. And what is your condition when you have finished it? You feel like doing another one immediately? You want to really give your feet some rest. You feel really tired. And you probably also appreciate it. So, wow, I did see, I'm so devoted, I did the whole parikrama. And Sanatana Goswami would do it every day, without fail. There were some who would do it twice a day. There are some who, till today, every day they do 2 parikramas of Govardhan every day, walking. So Sanatana Goswami would do 1 parikrama every day, and he would do the longer parikrama that went to Chandra Sarovar and Surya Kund, and he would go to those longer places that was almost 40 kilometers. The shorter kilometer, the regular one that we do is about maybe 24 kilometers or something like that. So he would religiously do that every day. And even as he was in old age, with great difficulty, he would walk. And one day a beautiful cowherd boy came to him as Sanatana was sitting near Govardhan. And he said, Baba, why are you going around like this every day? And then Sanatana understood that this was Krishna. And then Krishna gave him a Govardhan Shila and said, look, there's my footprints on this, and there's a print of the imprint of my flute and also of the hoof of a calf. Now you just take this Govardhan Shila, circumambulate this 4 times, and it will be as good as doing the parikrama of the entire Govardhan hill. And that stone is still present today in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. So Sanatana Goswami then finally had no choice because he couldn't walk anymore. So then he would just do the parikrama of that stone, that Shila. Similarly, there are so many other stories about how the Lord in the deity form bent down because the devotees who were serving them, or the devotee who was serving them, was too old to stand up and dress the deity. And the deity bent down. So, okay, I'll bend down, so that he was easily able to serve the deities. So the Lord reciprocates with his devotees like this. So devotional service is not some sentimental, fanciful tale. It's a reality for those who have the faith and devotion. So devotees, till the last breath, would like to follow the regulative principles, even though they don't really need to. So Haridas Thakur was not convinced, but Mahaprabhu continued. And he said, your role in this incarnation is to deliver the people in general. You have sufficiently preached the glories of the holy name in this world. So now when he says, Loka nistarati ei tomara avatar, you have incarnated to deliver the people in this world through the chanting of the holy names, Mahaprabhu is indicating that Haridas Thakur is an avatar, but not of Krishna. He is an avatar of Brahma, the creator of the universe, the secondary creator. Because the devotees of Krishna in Vrindavan, they also come in the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because they want to taste the nectar of the Sankirtan movement. So many of the devotees are also participating in Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Mayapur and in Puri. So many other devotees also participate. And Brahma was thinking, I also want to participate in these pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he came down as Haridas Thakur. So Haridas Thakur is none other than Brahma. So then Mahaprabhu continued and said, now therefore, please reduce the fixed number of times that you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Again, Haridas wasn't convinced. So he said, my dear Lord, please hear my plea. I was born in an inferior family and my body is most abominable. I always engage in low work. Therefore, I am the lowest and most condemned of men. Haridas Thakur, Sanatana Goswami, they were humility personified. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Of course, we can't imitate them. And if we start talking like this, then it doesn't ring true. And people are going to look at us in a certain way. If we start telling them, look, I'm the most condemned person on the earth. I'm lower than the lowest in the world. That doesn't ring true. So then why are all these things given here for us? To give us an idea of how the great acharyas were. That we can also try to bring in some humility in our life. Maybe not by imitating, but at least by understanding the principles. He said, I am unseeable, I am untouchable, but you have accepted me as your servant. This means that you have delivered me from a hellish condition and raised me to the Vaikuntha platform. My dear Lord, by your mercy, you have made me dance in many ways. For example, I was offered the Shraddha Patra, which should have been offered only to first-class Brahmins. I ate from it, even though I was born in a family of meat-eaters. Now the reference here is to one time when Advaita Acharya was doing a Shraddha ceremony for his departed forefathers. And the custom, when you do a Shraddha in traditional life, was that you would invite Brahmanas to come. And the senior most of those brahmanas, the most exalted of those brahmanas, would be given the first plate of Krishna's prasadam that had been offered to the forefathers. And that was called the Shraddha Patra, the plate from the Shraddha. So that is given to the most honorable amongst the brahmanas. And Advaita Acharya chose Haridas Thakur for that. And Haridas Thakur vigorously protested. He said, but I am born in a Yavana family. I am not a Brahmana. And apart from that, I am filled with all kinds of bad things. I have all sorts of bad qualities in me. And Advaita Acharya, of course, was a very intelligent, great devotee, incarnation of the Lord Himself. So he said, no, you are actually the most fit candidate to receive the Shraddha Patra, because you are the greatest devotee of the Lord. So you are fit and eligible to receive this honor. Haridas Thakur begged to differ, but Advaita Acharya was firm and clear in his mind. So this goes to show that a Vaishnava is much greater than a Brahmana. And nowadays also being born in a caste Brahmin family, it doesn't mean really so much. Because the kind of things we see Brahmanas doing these days, so-called Brahmanas, people born in Brahmin families, isn't something very appreciable. Eating meat, drinking liquor, and engaging in all sorts of sinful activities is very common nowadays. Even eating cow flesh. For Brahmanas, many people do it. And those who travel outside India and they settle into all these things. So being born in a Brahmin family really doesn't have much bearing in this day and age. I know of many mafia and people who are all born in Brahmin families. Land mafia and such dons and everything like that. So-called Brahmins. And they're proud that they're Brahmins. But they don't mind shooting somebody to death. It's okay. For a land deal, or they want to blackmail you and extract some land from you, some money from you, and a few killings here and there. It's all right. We are Brahmins, so it's okay. So Haridas Thakur is in his mood of humility speaking like this. And then he reveals his mind. He said, my dear Lord, I had a very deep desire for a long time. I think that you are going to wind up your pastimes in this material world very soon. And my deep wish is that you should not show me your closing pastimes. Meaning that I want to leave before you leave. I don't want to be here. I won't be able to bear your passing away from this world. So I want to leave this body gazing at your lotus face. I don't want to see you leaving this world before me. So he says, I wish that you do not show me this closing chapter of your pastimes. Before that time comes, kindly let my body fall down in your presence. I wish to catch your lotus-like feet upon my heart and see your moon-like face. With my tongue, I shall chant your holy name, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. That is my desire. Let me give up my body in this way. O most merciful Lord, if by your mercy it is possible, kindly grant my desire. Let this low-born body fall down before you. You can make possible this perfection of my desire. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, didn't like it. He said, Haridas, Krishna is so merciful that he must execute whatever you want. But whatever happiness is mine is all due to your association. It is not fitting for you to go away and leave me behind. So Mahaprabhu says, see Haridas, you are such a great devotee. Krishna is going to fulfill your every desire. So if you want to go before me, Krishna will fulfill that. That's not a problem. But I have a problem. that I am dependent on your association for my happiness. And you're going to leave and go away? That's not good. A similar kind of thing happened in Ramanujacharya's pastimes. I won't describe it in detail. He had one dear disciple, great devotee, exalted devotee. And he went to the deity of the Lord. He was very old. He said, my dear Lord, I want to leave this world now. I cannot stay any longer. So the Lord was petitioning him to ask for some benediction. Finally he said, all right, please take me to Vaikuntha back. And then the Lord said, yes, so be it. The Lord spoke actually. And the word spread like wildfire in the devotee community. And naturally it reached the ears of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya went storming to him and said, how can you ask such a thing? He says, I'm still here and you want to leave and go away. He meant it in the way that I want your association. And you're going to leave me and go away like this? And in any case, it's the elders who go first. So the spiritual master should go first and then the disciples should follow. But his disciple, this devotee who was blessed by the Lord to attain Vaikuntha, replied. He said, I understand that is a traditional norm, but I am looking at it from the point of view of Vaikuntha. It is also the proper custom that the dependents or the youngsters should be there to receive the elders when they come. So when you go to Vaikuntha, then I should be there to welcome you and to receive you when you come there. So Ramanuja was speechless. You are too intelligent for me. And of course, Ramanuja's passing away is another example, but we don't have that much time. So anyway, a similar kind of situation happened here with Mahaprabhu and Haridas Thakur. So then, Haridas Thakur caught hold of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet and he said, my dear Lord, don't create an illusion. Although I am so fallen, you must certainly show me this mercy. There are many, many respectable personalities, millions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. They are all helpful in your pastimes. My Lord, if an insignificant insect like me dies, what is the loss? If an ant dies, what is the loss to the material world? My Lord, you are always affectionate to your devotees. I am just an imitation devotee. But nevertheless, I wish that you fulfill my desire. That is my expectation. So because Mahaprabhu had to fulfill his noontime duties, he had to take darshan of the Lord and he had other things to do. So he left for the day. And it was settled between them that after he had darshan of Lord Jagannath the next day, he would come and meet Haridas Thakur again. So he embraced Haridas Thakur and left. Meanwhile, the next morning, after taking darshan of Lord Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the place of Haridas Thakur at Siddhabakula again. He hastily went to see Haridas. And after Haridas reached there, Mahaprabhu reached there, Haridas offered obeisances, caught hold of Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. And then Haridas Thakur was asked by Mahaprabhu, so Haridas, what is the news? And Haridas replied, my dear Lord, whatever is your mercy, that is the news. Whatever you wish. And then Mahaprabhu understood the indication and he began a great congregational chanting. In other words, Mahaprabhu had understood this was Haridas's desire and he wanted to fulfill Haridas's desire. So now Mahaprabhu was making preparations for the departure of Haridas Thakur from this world. So he began the congregational chanting of the holy names. All the devotees gathered and they all were chanting and dancing in great ecstasy. And many great devotees like Ramananda Rai, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and so on were present. Then after the chanting, Mahaprabhu began to glorify Haridas Thakur as if he had many mouths. And as he described the transcendental attributes of Haridas Thakur, his happiness increased. And the devotees who were present were struck with wonder to hear of Haridas Thakur's glories. They all offered their obeisances to Haridas Thakur, who could not move now. He was just lying down. He was horizontal. Then Haridas Thakur requested Mahaprabhu to sit down in front of him. And he fixed his eyes upon him like two bumblebees on the lotus feet of the Lord. So now Haridas Thakur was setting the stage for his own departure from this world. So he requested Mahaprabhu, please sit down in front of me. And as Mahaprabhu sat down, Haridas Thakur fixed his gaze on the lotus face of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as bumblebees are fixed upon lotus flowers. Then he began to hold the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and placed it on his heart. And then he took the dust from the feet of all the devotees present and smeared it on his head. And then he began to chant Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, repeatedly. And that was Mahaprabhu's sannyas name, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. And as he was chanting, he was gazing at the lotus face of Mahaprabhu, and tears of ecstasy were flowing down the eyes of Haridas Thakur. And while chanting Shri Krishna Chaitanya and gazing at Mahaprabhu's lotus face, Haridas Thakur gave up his life air and he departed from this world. And as everybody sat there looking at this whole extraordinary scene, they were all struck with wonder. They had never before seen such a departure from this world. And they all remembered the passing away of Bhishma from this world. I think all of you have heard about how Bhishma left his body. That, of course, is another narration in itself that will take a long time to narrate. But yes, Bhishma also had the benediction of Swachchanda Mrityu, which means that he would only die at a time and place of his choosing. Even before the battle began, a very interesting thing happened. Yudhishthir Maharaj left his chariot and walked across the space that was between the two armies of the Kauravas and Pandavas. And he started walking towards the Kaurava army. And everybody was aghast. Arjuna and Bhima, they were thinking, my God, what has happened? Has Yudhishthir Maharaj changed his mind? Is he not going to fight now? Why is he walking across? He's moving towards Bhishma. Then the warriors on the Kaurava side also felt the same. They said, oh, Yudhishthir has decided to not fight. He is kind of, out of fear, decided to give up. Fire upon him, fire upon him. They started criticizing Yudhishthir Maharaj. But Yudhishthir was unperturbed. He just quietly kept walking and walking till he reached Bhishma's chariot. And everybody was watching him in complete stunned silence. What is Yudhishthir Maharaj going to do now? And Yudhishthir Maharaj offered his obeisances to Bhishma, who was like their grandfather. And he said, oh grandsire, please bless me so that I can begin the battle, so that I can fight you. And Bhishma said, I happily give you my blessings to fight me. In fact, if you hadn't asked for my blessing, I would have cursed you. But now you have come, I bless you heartily to fight me. Now I'm so pleased, I want to give you a benediction. Ask me, whatever you may. And then Yudhishthir Maharaj asked the question, how can you be killed? How will you die? This was a society of Kshatriyas. This was how life was. He didn't mean ill, but Bhishma was on the wrong side. And Yudhishthira was fighting on behalf of Krishna for dharma. It was Krishna's wish that Yudhishthira should be crowned the emperor of the world so that dharma would be established all over the world. And Bhishma sighed and said, that is not possible. No one can kill me. Only I can die out of my own sweet will. So please tell us the way in which you will die. What will make you die out of your own sweet will? What's the way to do it? And Bhishma said, the time has not come for me to tell you that. Ask me after some days. And the battle was about to begin. Right? Then, anyway, Yudhishthira got that message, he got the blessings. Then he went to the other elders like Dronacharya, Kripacharya. He asked them for blessings and they all said the same thing. That because you've come here for blessings, we bless you that you may fight with us. Otherwise we will request you because you didn't follow the etiquette. So then days passed. Bhishma actually fell on day 10 of the battle. But before that, some other circumstances had arisen in the battle. We won't go into that for shortage of time. And that was when, at Yudhishthira's request, Bhishma revealed how he could be killed. Yudhishthira Maharaj went up to Bhishma and said, you had asked me to come to you after a few days to tell you how you can die, how we can ensure your death. And then he said, yes, only if Shikhandi comes in front of Arjuna, then I won't lift my bow and arrow. I will not contest. So anyways, that happened. So he gave the hint of how his death would come about. And then there's a whole great pastime of how Krishna lifted the chariot wheel and so on and so forth. And then Bhishma his back was full of arrows. His body was full of arrows. And he fell on the ground and the arrows became like a bed for him. And he lay there. But he didn't die. The battle went on for another 8 days. And Bhishma remained on the bed of arrows. And then the battle concluded. The Pandavas emerged victorious. And in great sorrow, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was besides himself with grief. He thought this entire massacre has happened because of me. And then he tried to speak with Krishna. Krishna pacified him. Actually, Krishna couldn't pacify him, I beg your pardon. Even Krishna could not give him solace. He was so inconsolable. But Krishna had a plan. He said, come. He took him to Bhishma. Anyway, Yudhishthira Maharaj was planning to go to see Bhishma because Bhishma was still alive. Krishna wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj to get last minute instructions from Bhishma. He didn't want Bhishma to leave till he had sufficiently instructed Yudhishthira about Raja Dharma, about the art of governance according to Dharma. He wanted to glorify his great devotee Bhishma in that way. And Bhishma also wanted to die looking at Krishna's lotus face. And this happened for almost 50 days. 50 days afterwards, the time came for Bhishma to leave the world. And Bhishma also requested Krishna to sit down in front of him. And after he had finished instructing Yudhishthira for a long time, for many, many days, many, many intricate things, because Krishna had blessed him that he would not feel the pain of the arrows, and that his memory and his intelligence would continue to be razor sharp. So whatever knowledge he had accumulated before, by the grace of Ganga Devi, who was his mother, that would remain. So with great precision and eloquence and accuracy, Bhishma Dev imparted many, many instructions to King Yudhishthira. Finally the time was over. He had to leave. And then he made Krishna sit down in front of him. And he offered his prayers to Krishna, his parting prayers. He glorified Krishna. Now he moved his mind away from all the matters of politics and governance and everything else. Now only Krishna. So he fixed his mind on Krishna, he fixed his glance on Krishna, and he started glorifying Krishna. And then after the glorification ceased, he continued to just be speechless, but was gazing at Krishna's face. And in that way, Bhishma left this world. He departed, his life has left the body. And everybody there was stunned in silence, just waiting. And they understood that now Bhishma has left. Even the birds were silent. Because there were so many dead bodies all around in the battlefield. There were birds cawing and making all sorts of noises. But at Bhishma's departure, everything fell silent. And Yudhishthira Maharaj and Arjuna, they were all overcome with emotion and grief. Because they loved Bhishma. Bhishma was like everything to them. He was the one who protected them. When Duryodhana and others were trying to harass them in many ways. So Bhishma's departure was something very, very extraordinary. And all the devotees at the time of Haridas Thakur's departure remembered this pastime. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally lifted the body of Haridas Thakur. All the devotees made a tumultuous noise chanting Hari and Krishna. And Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. He raised the body of Haridas Thakur and placed it on his lap. Then he began to dance in the courtyard in great ecstasy. So all the devotees also began to chant and dance in great ecstasy as Mahaprabhu held the transcendental body of Haridas Thakur. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he instructed his devotees to perform the last rituals that are necessary for a great devotee. They placed him on a carrier that resembled an airship. And Mahaprabhu and the devotees took Haridas Thakur's body to the sea. They bathed the body in the sea. And Mahaprabhu declared that from now on, the sea here is a holy place. It's a place of pilgrimage. Therefore, every time we go to Jagannath Puri, we always take bath in the sea. Because Mahaprabhu had declared, this is the holy place now. It's a place of pilgrimage. And then Haridas Thakur's body was brought back and it was placed in Samadhi. The ground was dark and Haridas Thakur's body was placed there along with many, many items from the paraphernalia of Lord Jagannath, including the silken ropes and so on. And then it was covered over. An exalted devotee is not cremated. An exalted devotee is buried, and that's called a samadhi. And that place is still there today. Many of you who visited Puri may have gone to the samadhi tomb of Haridas Thakur. Our ISKCON center is very close to it, just across the street, basically. Bhakti Kuti, the place where Bhakti Vinod Thakur stayed. And then after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu organized a huge feast in honor of the passing away of Haridas Thakur. He personally went to all the shopkeepers who used to distribute Jagannath Mahaprasadam and collected alms. And then huge amounts of Jagannath Mahaprasadam were collected. And all the devotees gathered there. Mahaprabhu personally served and fed them. He fed them a lot of Mahaprasadam till they were filled to the necks. And loud chanting of the holy names was going on as the prasadam was being distributed. And people were remembering the glories of Srila Haridas Thakur. The feast was something extraordinary. Swarup Damodar took all the responsibility for organizing the distribution, for acquiring the Mahaprasadam from the shopkeepers and so on. And it was a festival to remember for all the devotees. And they all began to glorify Haridas Thakur as if they had many, many mouths. And such was the glorious passing away and departure of Haridas Thakur from this world as described in brief by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki Jai. Gaur Premanande
Hari 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 Bol.
Hare Krishna. So now it's time for the Arati. So we should reflect on the lives and the passing away of great devotees like Haridas Thakur. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.